Hey guys, it is MattySports bringing my Week 12 prediction or Week 13 predictions of the 2015 college football season. Last week in Week 12, I went a season record worse, 3-7. Bunch of picks I made did not happen. Temple beat Memphis, Ole Miss beat LSU, Arizona State beat Arizona, Oregon beat USC pretty easily. Northwestern beat Wisconsin. Notre Dame barely hung on against Boston College. Oklahoma State lost to Baylor. Oklahoma beat TCU. Penn State almost beat Michigan to get me an upset win. And lastly, Michigan State beat Ohio State on a game-winning field goal. So, a bunch of crazy stuff happened last week, but now we're on to Week 13. And it is the best week. It is rivalry week on the weekend of Thanksgiving. So before I pick these games, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. If you celebrate that holiday, I hope everyone enjoys it. And what better way to enjoy it while watching some great rivalry college football games. And first up, we have a couple of Friday night games of number 15 Navy at number 21 Houston. Now, this isn't really a rivalry game, but both these teams are ranked and pretty good in the American Conference. Both only have one loss, but if I have to pick one, I like Navy because their only loss is to Notre Dame, and their offense is just really good. And even though Houston is at home, I just do not think they'll be able to keep up with Navy. Next up, we have number 7 Baylor at number 19 TCU. TCU almost beat Oklahoma last week, failing on a 2-point conversion that could have won them the game. I don't see why they dropped all the way to 19. That seems kind of. I guess they only dropped a couple spots from last week, but they played them pretty well, and I don't think Oklahoma should have moved up to number 3 from last week's rankings. I thought that was too high of a jump for barely beating TCU. But besides that, I like Baylor to win this game because Baylor looked pretty good against Oklahoma State, and TCU without their starting quarterback Trayvon Boykin, I just do not think they'll be able to keep up. Next, we have number 8 Ohio State at number 10 Michigan. Ohio State coming off the loss to Michigan State. Michigan's still keeping pace. They won't be able to make it to the Big Ten championship game, but they do have Ohio State at home. This is going to be a big game. Always starts at noon in the big house. And after seeing Ohio State play last week against a very, I don't think, really good Michigan State team, I like Michigan. Personally, I think Michigan's the best team in the Big Ten, even though they're not going to be able to prove that in the championship game because they lost on a fluke punt to Michigan. I think they'll be able to beat Ohio State. I think it could be close, but I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan won by 2 touchdowns. Next, we have the Iron Bowl of number 2 Alabama at Auburn. This game is one of the more well-known rivalry games. Past couple years, been pretty good. Auburn hasn't been so good, unfortunately to say, but Alabama's usually keeping track where they are, always around the top 4, so even though they're on the road, I think Alabama will win this game. Of course, it's going to be close because it's a rivalry, but Alabama should be able to take care of this no problem. Next, we have number 22 UCLA at USC. USC coming off a loss to Oregon has to hurt for them, but they do get the Bruins at home. Of course, a rivalry game. It's going to be great. But I surprisingly will take the UCLA Bruins in a slight upset here. They are underdogs on the road, even though they are ranked higher. But I like the Bruins to go and take this one. Next, we have number 18 Ole Miss at number 21 Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. This has been a pretty good game the past few years. Both these teams have started to get national prominence again. Of course, Mississippi State last year, they were even ranked number 1 in the playoffs a year ago, which is pretty impressive. Ole Miss used to be in the top 4 conversation as well, but now both these teams are sort of kind of being nice, decent teams. The SEC West keeping pace, being in the top 25. I think this is good for the state of Mississippi. It should be a great rivalry game, but I think Ole Miss will take this game. Next, we have the game, of course, I'm going to be looking forward to. Number 13, Florida State at number 12, Florida. Florida's 12, Florida State's 13. Florida State has 2 losses, Florida has 1 loss. But Florida, the past few weeks, they've been playing, honestly, horrendous. Barely beating Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and Florida Atlantic. They had to go into overtime to beat Florida Atlantic. And if it wasn't for a couple of missed defensive penalties on Florida's defense in overtime against Florida Atlantic, Florida Atlantic could have made a touchdown, kicked the extra point because Florida's kicker missed the extra point, and they could have won. But again, Florida only has 1 loss. If they beat Florida State, then beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, there's no reason why they should not make the playoff. But we'll see what happens. Now, Florida State, they're coming off one against Chattanooga, the easy team to play before the rivalry game. Before that, they played NC State, got down behind early, but played really well in the second half. Now, for this game, I honestly don't think it'll be close. I think Florida State wins by at least 17 points. That's just my opinion. I know it's at the Swamp, and of course it's a rivalry game, but when I'm analyzing it, Florida has no kicking game. They can't even make extra points consistently. Their defense is great, sure, but Florida State's defense may not be as good, but I think they're still be able to keep up and stop Florida's horrendous offense. Trayon Harris is a horrible quarterback. Their offense is bad, their kicking is bad, their defense is their only bright spot. But even then, Dalvin Cook's probably going to bust a huge run at least once in the game, and Sean McGuire's looked good passing deep into the secondary of defenses. I just don't think it'll be close. I don't see how they think it's only a 2.5 point favorite for Florida State. I think this is at least a 17-point win for Florida State, and I would honestly think Florida State wins this by 22 points because I'm sure somehow Florida's going to miss an extra point, which will give Florida State an extra point of margin of victory. So that's how I see it. I think Florida State wins this game big. Next, we have number 6 Notre Dame at number 9 Stanford in a very crucial playoff sort of consideration game. Notre Dame dropped 2 spots after that sloppy performance against Boston College. And Stanford, they still have 2 losses, still unlikely to make the playoff for a team from the Pac-12 to make it. With Stanford at home and how Notre Dame's been playing poorly recently, I'll take Stanford at home to win this game. Next, we have the upset special, and I'm feeling pretty big with this upset. And it is a rivalry game in the Big Ten, a sort of newly found rivalry of number 4 Iowa at Nebraska. Nebraska upset Michigan State a few weeks ago. Iowa, they haven't really played anyone. Yes, they played Pittsburgh. They've played their teams they've had to play in the Big Ten. They did not have to play Michigan, Ohio State, or Michigan State in the other division for their crossover games. Nebraska at home in the Sea of Red, I think they'll be able to get it done. And if Nebraska's able to pull it off, it'll be a huge game in deciding the playoff because I'll just throw a wrench in all the plans of the playoff committee. So I'll take Nebraska at home. And lastly, we have the game of the week where College Game Day will be going to, and that is number 3 Oklahoma at number 11 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma struggled against TCU last week, barely beating them, getting a nice stop on the 2-point conversion. Oklahoma State's coming off a loss to Baylor. Oklahoma State's at home. Oklahoma's number 3. I like Oklahoma State at home in the slight upsets. I think they'll be able to get it done, give Oklahoma 2 losses, leaving Oklahoma State and Baylor as the 2 one-loss teams, and I think it'll basically come down to that if a representative from the Big 12 is going to make the playoffs, so I'll take Oklahoma State to win. But anyway, guys, that's been it for this week's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know I missed a lot of games, so many rivalry games that were not covered, but this is the hardest week for me to pick 10 games because there's only 10 I can pick, and so many rivalry games I miss. USF, UCF, even though USF is probably going to win that big, but Washington State, North Carolina, NC State, a bunch of games that I could not cover. I'm sorry about that, but that's how things go sometimes. But anyway, guys, this has been MattySports, and I'll see you guys next week for Conference Championship Week and the indicating games of who will make the playoffs. See you guys then.